So here's a session I did in the studio a couple of days ago where I was trying to put together a drone using Ableton Live's native instruments because I want to run this on the Push 3 standalone for an upcoming performance. So I'm sharing with you here how I put this thing together. I hope you enjoy it. Now on to today's session. It's going to be about creating a sustained drone or flexible droning instrument inside Ableton Live with just native Ableton instruments that can run on Push standalone. Now, to the effect that I'm going to do this, let me see here. We're going to call up another screen, and I've actually gone to ChatGPT to ask it. So I said, here, how do I create a pad or a standalone device in Ableton Live? So it's going to replace the Allfather, but for now, we'll go over to Live. And we're going to create a MIDI track, and we're going to call this Allfather again. Okay, there we go. Now, if I check over on the ChatGPT, it says load wavetable. So we're going to go back here, and we're going to do just that. Okay, so instruments, and we look down here, wavetable. Perfect. Drag and drop. Boom, there's our wavetable. Okay, so if we go back and check right here, it says into new MIDI track, oscillator 1 set to sine, saw, or basic shapes. Okay, so let's go back to the screen. We're gonna look here and we're gonna say sine, basic shapes. Well, that's kind of interesting because that gives me more flexibility, I think. I like that idea of position. That's nice. Very cool. There's just a sine. You go to a triangle, sawtooth, square wave. Okay. Now it says, set oscillator 2 to retro 1 or classic pulse width modulation. Okay, so let's go back here. And this time we're going to select oscillator 2. So we go to oscillator 2. And this time it says, that's the harmonics. Saw. And we'll bring where's the mix? Oh, it's not enabled. That's interesting. Okay, so there's no enabling there on that. Let's go back to oscillator sub. There we go. Where is the enabling? I guess I'll just have to do it right here in Ableton itself because I can see where that's at. Just right here I can do that. Now it's enabled. Again, it's said to do classic pulse width or retro. Sub, harmonics, basic shapes. So it's got to be this direction, beating, pulse width. FM fold. Man, just look at all these tables we have. This is great. No primes. FM harmonics, FM fold, FM feedback, Galactica, sync digital, sync addictive, fifth brutal, pulse style, pulse width. Well, okay. Saw harmonics, saw pulse with bass, saw pulse with detune, quad saw, but let's go to pulse width. So. Not too bad. Okay, so on the screen here it says blend both oscillators to taste. Right now I'll just take out a little bit of that buzz, so a little less of oscillator 2. We only had negative 14 dB and full gain on the first oscillator. Yeah, I might change this later, but we'll just go with what they got right now. Okay, now it says set both envelopes to attack negative. Is that negative or about 2 seconds? Okay, so circa 2 seconds. No decay, full sustain, and a release of around 5 seconds. Let's try this. So if I hit wavetable, there we go. We can see all this. There's the envelopes. And so amps at both envelopes, it says. Do we have an amp per oscillator? I don't think we do. No. Okay, so we said around 2 seconds. Attack around 2 seconds? And if you say so, that seems a little extreme. Right now we got milliseconds. Let's see if we can go all the way to, yeah, we're going about 2 seconds. Okay. No decay. Sustain to full. There you go. Well, once you set sustain to 100%, it's just going to be there. And then the release, they want around 5 seconds. Yipes. Well, okay, let's do go all, yep, there we go. There's a 5-second release. Okay. Now if we go back here, it says add sub oscillator. Enable sub oscillator level about 20 to 30%. Filtered via same filter 1. Okay. So let's go back to the push. And we're going to go to the main, the oscillators. So we have oscillator 1, 2, 3. Here's our sub. We're going to enable our sub. It's a gain of about negative 20, I think is what it said. Level 20 to 30%. Of course, they don't even tell you what octave they want, although 1 octave kind of works well for me. And oh, I like the tone though. So this is something we can maybe put into the master controls for this track. Okay, very cool. Like that. Mix. Gain to sub. Again, they say percent, but there's not a percent. Right. Let's go back to the main here, because take the filter down. Not bad. Kind of like what I'm getting here. Okay. So back to the ChatGPT recommendation. They have add modulation LFO1 for filter breathing. Set LFO1 destination, filter 1 frequency. And so we can see here shape sign. Oh, the LFO, yes, of course. And the rates 5.05 to 0.1 hertz. Mount around 20 to 30. And retrig off. Okay. So let's go back here to the push, because I'm having fun just seeing how much I can do just right on the push itself. And we're going to go to the LFOs. Okay, here's LFO1. And we're going to set the destination. Is there a destination set here? Shape type, rate. No, it's probably in the matrix. There's amp, pitch, oscillator 1, there's filter. And you can see the frequency, and then we're going to apply LFO1 to it. Let's try that, and we'll hit a note. That's nice. Okay. I got it to oscillator 1 position. I kind of like that. As we go over to our oscillator positions. There we go. You can see the filter modulating there. And then oscillators go back to oscillator 1. Oh, very nice. Like that. Okay. And let's do another thing here too, because I want to see how it interacts with our reverb. So I'm going to go to the mixer, and I'm going to go over to the sends, and right now, we're going to send this to the shimmer reverb and see what it does. Okay, and then we can always go to the filter back here. And we're going to go to the matrix, and we're going to bring down the LFO. Yeah, just a very subtle effect. Okay, let's see what it suggests next. So we have filter for breathing for wavetable position. So we could separate this actually. So instead of setting LFO 1 to oscillator 1 position, we can do this, bring that back down to 0. Again, there we go. Send a little bit from LFO 2, go to LFO 2, and it says assign 0.07 to 0.15, and the amount about 15 to 20, and retrigger off, and the shape sign oscillator 1 position. Good, let's see if that's actually moving the oscillator position. Let's go back to oscillators. Okay, let's make it a little more radical by going to the matrix and including, or kind of increasing the signal to that oscillator. That's really cool. All right, and as usual, I'm not showing what I'm doing. So just to catch up here, on the LFO, we've got, in fact, let's go to the matrix. We go to LFO 2. Here's our shape. It's set to about 9.09 hertz, and we're using the sawtooth, or sorry, the sine. I guess we don't get like a fully randomized shape. Let's try this one. Okay. We can bring the shape up or down. Okay. Let's just go back to our basic sine wave here. And then you can see the position here, about 1.2%. If we go back to the matrix, we can see we got LFO 2. Doing it about 43% of send from that LFO to the oscillator 1. And then by shifting position, we can move it from the more sine wave, triangle. And if we go down an octave, maybe what I want to do now, I'm going to go kind of like freewheeling here, but I think I want to adjust the pitch of Oscillator 2. So I'm going to go over to Oscillator 2. Oh, but these are semitones. I want to, and what if it's about Oscillator 1? Okay. Basic. Alright. And the sub. Oh, I love that tone though. Can I add tone to matrix? So if I move tone, add to matrix. Subtone. And I can throw a little bit of the LFO 2 at it. Bring that down, bring this down a little bit. Very cool, like that. There's our main. There's the subtone right there. The breathing of the filter. I can freeze the modulation, make the modulation more radical just by switching the mod amount here. Not bad. Okay, so we did the LFO thing. Now it says add effects, auto filter. Okay, let's do that. Let's do it on the push. And we'll go over to plus, and we're gonna add an auto filter. Actually, let's add a device. We're gonna add device, yes. And we're going to add audio effect rack. So we added an audio effect rack, and now we're gonna add a device again. And this time we're gonna go to audio effects, and we're going to add an auto filter to, and it should add it to the rack. Let's see if it does that. Okay, now it didn't add it in the rack. You can see over here in Ableton it didn't. I'll just drag and drop it into the rack. That's why we have Ableton open here. We're doing kind of everything running from Ableton to the push, rather than just doing push standalone. Okay. And we're going to set to low pass, 12 decibels or 10 decibels, low pass. Doesn't really tell me which low pass it is here. Let's see. 24 is actually set in the plugin itself. So let's go to auto filter like this. Yeah, there we go. We can see 12 or 24. Whoops. There's 12. Here's 24. Let's go with a 12. Make it a little less harsh. Okay. And it says set low pass, frequency about 2.5K. We're almost there. Whoops. 2.5, be right about here. There we go. Add internal LFO. So we're gonna go to the LFO, and we're gonna set shape to triangle. So there's our shape. There we go. Set it to triangle. Rate at about 0.08. So other direction. Let's go point. Huh. Well, we get down to 0.1, we can't do 0.08. Amount, let's see, where's the amount? LFO offset, LFO steps. LFO amount, here we go. It's right there. And we're gonna set it to 25 to 30%. So let's bring it down here. Right, now to make that more effective, what I need to do is go back to the wavetable instrument and bring up the frequency on the filter, and then go back to the auto filter. Let's see what that sounds like. extreme for me. It's a little bit high. Okay, let's go back into the auto filter. We'll go back to main. We're gonna set it to 20, whoops, bring that back down. In fact, we're gonna bring that a little bit lower, set it to 24. Part of the reason why I don't want to go too deep on this, like, or have it be too bright, is because I want to leave space for the other instruments. Also because it's going to the shimmer reverb, and that's going to be exciting upper frequencies. So I try to keep my original tones low and then let them shimmer. The shimmer reverb kind of fill up the higher spectrum. Oh, that drive. The drive can be key too. So the drive on the filter could be another thing I want to bring up to my main device. In fact, let's just do this right now. Go over here to Ableton, and we're going to select this and this auto filter. Actually, let's bring this open. There we go. And we'll just close down the device chain for the moment. And we're going to create one. We're going to group these. So where's group? Okay, this group. And then here's our instrument settings. Whoops, there we go. And we're going to do one more thing, which is we're going to add a device, and we're going to go over to MIDI effects, and we're going to add a MIDI effect rack. Okay, but it's outside our instrument rack here, so we're just going to drag and drop it in here for now. There we go. Okay, so now we have our basic flow that I like right now, which the main instrument rack encapsulating a MIDI effect rack, the instrument itself, and audio effects, which are minimal, because like here in the audio effects, I might use a delay. Definitely don't want to use reverb, at least for most of these things, because a reverb is something I'm reserving as a send effect. That shimmer reverb that I use. And then I also have a master delay I can send things to as well. Okay, not too bad. So macro mapping, this depth, hybrid reverb size, auto filter cutoff, LFO 1 and 2 amounts for current flow, drift, Oscillator 2 detune. Now that's something actually I want to go back and take a look at. So let's take a look at Oscillator 2 detune. Select Oscillator 2. So now here we go, detune by Synths. Now I might want to enable some of this MPE stuff. Like that. So one of the things I definitely want to control is probably the modulation and the filter, the frequency of the auto filter. So let's go over here and we go into auto filter. We have drive, we have frequency, and let's map this to macro 2. There we go. But the thing is I have to map this up from here up to the main macros. So if I go to macro 2, say done, and then I go over to the audio effect rack and take macro 2, and I'm going to map that up to macro 5 on the main one. There we go. I'll say done. Now I can go all the way at my top level. This is not going to be key dependent because the auto filter is not key dependent. Got the frequency there. frequency is pretty high. I think there's limits you can eventually set on these. Not bad. Okay, let's go back to Wavetable. And we'll go to the MIDI and MPE. Oh, that's a nice effect too. Just did a fourth there. Nice. Okay. Actually, let's go back to the main part of Wavetable. In fact, let's go to Wavetable like that. Now let's go into that Wavetable. Since I said that I wanted to take that tone and bring it up, we're going to go over to Oscillators, Pitch, Warp, Fold. We go down to Sub Oscillator. There's Tone. We're going to take this, and I think this is going to be maybe position 4 on both our, well, in our main instrument rack, actually. So let's take Tone. We're going to say Map, and we're going to map to macro 4. Say yes. Okay, great. Go back up to the instrument rack. There's subtone. We can move these around later if we need to. We can even rename them too. All right, that's not bad. Pretty bright. Turn that down some. Cool. Well, the thing about this is we want it to be a drone, so we have to figure out how to get a drone. So we have this self-running MIDI clip. Okay, so it says create a 2-bar MIDI clip. Double click on the, there we go. Here's my new clip. And it says note C2 or root of your drone. So we're just gonna draw this in. There's D3. Here's all the way down to C2. Okay, velocity 102 bars. Now, the solos track, hit play. Okay, this is technically not a drone because it's not being like, you know, just an oscillator oscillating, which these instruments apparently, according to ChatGPT, don't do, and according to my experience, I haven't found it. If anybody else knows about this, let me know, because I'd like to know if there's any of these native live instruments that will actually drone, or any Max for live instruments that will drone on push 3 standalone. But it seems to be working well as a drone. And then probably now what I'm tempted to do is go back to my device, go to my MIDI rack, hit plus. We're going to add a device, and that device is going to be a MIDI effect, and that MIDI effect is going to be pitch, and go down to -12. Nice. And then we can go back, instrument rack. Oh, except it added the pitch before. Yeah, I see what it did. Okay. So what I'm gonna do is just gonna open up the rack here. Whoops. Did just the opposite of what I wanted. There we go. And drop it in the MIDI effect rack. And then we're gonna add this to macro 2, probably in the MIDI effect. Okay. Map. Macro 2, and map this to macro 8. That's where I'm keeping my pitches right now across my devices. And then we'll go over here, say done. And back to the instrument rack, and there's pitch at the end. Yeah, they say 2 bars, but I don't know. I think I might want to actually... Let's double the loop. Now we got a 4-bar loop. Okay, loop length. Let's go loop length of 4. And that gives me more time, especially to do a pitch shift. In fact, what we want to actually do is do a scale offset. So let's add a device. We're gonna come in here and go to device. Once more to MIDI effects. Over here to scale. And we're gonna say scale plus. Yeah, I'm just gonna add a scale. Now what I wanna do is undo my pitch. I'm gonna just do this here because it's easier. So map to frequency, unmap from pitch. We're gonna take this and map to macro 2, actually macro 3, I think. Map this again to macro 2, map to macro 2. And then we're gonna map this to macro 8. There we go. Now if we go back to my main instrument rack, there's our bass C. And this gives me a target. So I can now look and see where we are in our loop sequence. We're getting towards the end. Okay. Now we're almost there. Okay, now we can shift up to maybe say like F. And on the next loop, it's going to change to F. Or not. Oh. Right, because I have to do an actual pitch transposition. So it can't be that easy. Okay. I have to go to like -9. That's a calculation I don't want to do on stage. I have to figure out something about that, but go back to -12. Not bad. Now, let's go out of solo mode. All right, so not bad work for today's session. We kind of created the beginnings of the All-Father. We got some ability to manipulate it and, you know, kind of do a transformation live. It's going to take some more messing around and some just application of building up everything live, but this is something that's more flexible than what I had built before, and I've learned a lot about Wavetable and some of the other devices, and even adding some devices in the push along the way. So all together, nice little session. Well, that was my little session, and I hope that you found some information in there that you find useful. Please like and subscribe, and share a comment down in the section as to how you might apply it to your own project, or what other kind of questions you might have about Ableton Live devices. I look forward to seeing you in the next video.